I would like to discuss the difficulties of designing a book cover. In writing the supporting document for my design, I covered the choices and symbols in my piece. However, I did not cover most of the behind-the-scenes work and problems that arose. The first problem I had was simply coming up with an idea for the design. I looked at many different book covers to draw inspiration. However, I knew I didn't want to do something that had been done before. I wanted an original design. So looking at these designs actually helped me decide what I didn't want to do more than what I did want to do. Eventually, I developed an idea for my cover in my head, and it was time to try and transfer it onto paper. This provided a whole new set of challenges. It took hours to try and draw out my mental images. Simply trying to draw the perspectives took several attempts. When I finally got the perspective down, most of the other features were roughly sketched in, and I told myself I would make them look better in the final. Drawing the Invisible Man, though, was extremely difficult. I was trying to have him bent over, but the table and my limited artistic skills made that virtually impossible. Even the body and arms were difficult because I couldn't get them to look human. When I was finally satisfied that my sketch was at least enough to have a solid template, I decided I would move on and try to make everything look better through the use of design software. The first step in doing this was learning to use the software. This was my first time using Adobe Illustrator. It took me days of watching instructional videos and many more hours of practicing just to feel comfortable enough to start working on the design. My first problem in trying to start my cover was trying to figure out the perspective grid. For some reason, certain lines would snap correctly, but many wouldn't. Eventually I gave up on the grid and tried to freehand the rest of the way. Unfortunately, this left me with the same problem as in my hand drawing. The perspective was difficult to master and left me with many problems in trying to draw the rest of the image in matching perspective. The couch in the background was perhaps the hardest thing to design in the image. Trying to make the couch look realistic by using curvature took the better part of a day's work. I struggled with trying to curve the back of the couch and with the armrests. I had to consult many people and images in order to figure out how I should draw the couch to make it look more real. The second hardest part was the Invisible Man. Drawing his head was not too difficult, and his hair turned out to be quite easy using a special feature in Illustrator. Even his overcoat and arms were not difficult thanks to Illustrator. However, his hands were a whole nother animal. Trying to make the hands look real was basically impossible with my level of skill. The end product is still not very satisfying, but is infinitely better than the original. I could not get the fingers to curve properly, and was unable to make the arms extend from the sleeves in a realistic fashion. The nice thing was that I only had to design one, and then could flip a copy and move it to the other arm. My final piece of work was getting all the colors to work. In order to make them look more realistic, I had to apply gradients to most of the objects. Trying to make the gradients look realistic with no experience took a lot of time, but I am happy with the end result. Overall, the project took me about 2 weeks, which was significantly more than I expected. I had hoped to finish it in a few days, but the amount of work it took made that almost impossible. I now have a better understanding of how much work goes into graphic design and feel more able to analyze other artists' work.